Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about the growing crisis in South Asia. The India-Bangladesh relation seems to be in a downward spiral, and things are not getting better at all. The last few days since December 12th, you could say in the last 10 days have been terrible. There have been terrible incidences in Bangladesh, which have sort of exacerbated the tensions between India and Bangladesh. And it has raised issues about the direction of Bangladeshi government and the state of Bangladesh. It has also raised the issue of the growing geopolitical tension in the region, as well as what is going to happen with regards to the coming elections and India's role in Bangladesh's domestic politics. So there are a few events that I want to highlight. One of them was that a particular leader of the National Citizens Party, I think the new party that has emerged after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina in 2024, his name is Hasnat Abdullah. He made a lot of threatening noises about India. He threatened to break India basically by saying that they will separate the 7 sister states of Northeast India from mainland India. And this seems to be a common thread these days from Bangladesh. For whatever reason, Bangladeshi leadership thinks that they have the military power to threaten India and even break India. I find that quite laughable, really, but still they keep making that threats. There is a very vulnerable point in Siliguri in India, where there's a small stretch of land which connects the main India with the rest of Northeast India. That little land is the distance, I think, between Nepal and Bangladesh. And there's this constant fear that if that particular chicken's neck, as it is referred to, is blocked, then the rest of the northeastern states in India will be cut off from the rest of India. So this is a threat that this guy Hasnat Abdullah made, and there were protests and anger in the Indian capital of Delhi. But subsequently, there was an assassination. A very important young Bangladeshi leader, Usman Hadi, was shot by masked people on motorcycles. And that has created a huge uproar in Bangladesh, because a lot of Bangladeshis think that India is behind that assassination. Clearly, the people who are being hunted for that assassination, some people have been arrested, some are feared to have crossed the border into India, and some are still being hunted in Bangladesh. They are all considered as associated with the Awami League, with the party of Sheikh Hasina, who was for a long time the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, who started with a liberal democracy and ended up with an authoritarian regime. And she was ousted by student protests just last year in August. And so the suspects are associated with her party. At least that is what the authorities in Bangladesh are claiming. Usman Hadi was a young firebrand leader who died on December 18th in Singapore after he was shot. He was airlifted to Singapore for emergency care, but he succumbed to his wounds there. And that's when the protests really started. On that same very night of his death, a young Hindu person in Bangladesh was brutally beaten to death and lynched. His name is Deepu Das, and that has raised several concerns about the state of minorities since the beginning of this student-led protests that ousted Sheikh Hasina. There have been consistent violence against minorities in Bangladesh. Hindus have been killed and their properties destroyed. There have been attacks on Hindu temples in Bangladesh. And there is constant fear that minorities are at risk. And this particular lynching of Deepu Das was quite, shall we say, brutal. And he was accused of blasphemy. I mean, this is, I guess, the new friendship that Bangladesh now has with Pakistan. They are bringing back this horrible tension. I mean, this horrible practice of accusing minorities of committing blasphemy against the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or against Islam, and then to perpetrate violence as if to justify something which is profoundly illegal. But to the credit, and I must say this, to the credit of Muhammad Yunus of Bangladesh and the leadership of Bangladesh, there have been very specific condemnations by Muhammad Yunus and his leadership of the attack on minorities. They have said this is terrible and despicable as to what happened with Das. And so that is the good news, that at least from the top, there is condemnation going on. Just last week, a Muslim was lynched in Bihar, Attar Hussain, who was beaten to death, and he died as a result of the burns and the beatings he got just because he was a Muslim in Bihar. This is after the recent elections in which the Bharatiya Janata Party promised to end Jungle Raj, or basically lack of rule of law in Bihar, and there was a lynching. But the sad part is that neither the Prime Minister Modi nor the Chief Minister of Bihar condemned the brutal violence by Hindu mobs that killed this poor Muslim guy, Attar Hussain, in Bihar. So unlike Indian leadership, which takes the lynching of minorities as a routine and does not even bother to condemn, I can't remember when was the last time Prime Minister Modi came out and condemned the lynching of minorities that are frequent in India. But at least to the credit of Muhammad Yunus, he did come out and condemn that Deepu was the attack on Deepu. And so that is something very important. The people should not be allowed. If people are taking the law in their own hands, then it's a banana republic. As simple as that. If there are mobs out there, doesn't matter what the individual did. If you have rule of law, if you have a government, if you have a police force, then go and file a complaint and let the law take its route. But if ordinary people are turning into murderers, brutal murderers, then it tells you something very negative about the population and about the country. If mobs are going to rule the streets, then it is a banana republic. It's forget about being a democracy. It's not even a proper society. But it is interesting that the manner in which Usman Hadi was shot is interesting. There's a lot of propaganda coming out of India that this is a new India, and there are accusations that the Indian government is killing dissidents and anti-India forces. You're all familiar with what happened with Canada. India was accused by Canada of basically killing Khalistani extremists inside Canada. And of course, while India has denied that and continues to deny that, Canada, under pressure from Donald Trump, has dropped that case because it wants to improve trade relations with India. But the United States actually arrested an Indian for trying to kill people who are critical of India, people that India has accused of being terrorists and extremists, like Gurpatwant Singh Panno in New York, in the US. And then there have been reports that 30 anti-India extremists who were living in Pakistan were also killed in a very similar way. Two people coming on a motorcycle and shooting the person in death. And on top of that, Prime Minister Modi keeps bragging about how ghus ke marenge, that we will enter your house and kill you. So this man, Usman Hadi, was a very open critique of India. He had ratcheted up anti-India sentiments, and so he was shot in a very similar manner. So I don't blame the Bangladeshis for suspecting that India is behind this, because India brags about it. Right now, there is a movie in India called Dhurandhar, which you should see. I saw the movie. I'm actually going to do a review of it after I finish this particular broadcast, in which there's a propaganda movie to say this is a new India which will enter your house and kill you, and our agents will come and destabilize your society. So India is bragging about its newfound ability and commitment to go into foreign countries and kill people who they think are a threat to their national interest, and also to destabilize their society. So I won't be surprised that the Bangladeshis fear that India is trying to destabilize Bangladesh, and India is trying not to allow Bangladesh to emerge with the new Bangladesh that they want to have, primarily because of India's close relations with Sheikh Hasina. On more than on many occasions, whenever I have done a show on Bangladesh, and I've done a few, I've spoken with scholars from Bangladesh, I've spoken with scholars from India, prominent scholars for students of Bangladesh. And since the upheaval in August, when Sheikh Hasina's government was removed, and Sheikh Hasina, who tried to first go to the United States and then UK, was denied access. Like both the United Kingdom and the US refused entry to Sheikh Hasina, so she went to India, and she's since been living in India. And I have consistently advocated that India should not allow Sheikh Hasina to remain in India. This is what it is going to do, because people in Bangladesh are going to feel that by hosting Sheikh Hasina, India is trying to bring her back. And so they're going to destabilize Bangladesh. They're going to mess it up so badly that India is hoping that people will then once again say, oh my God, please bring back Sheikh Hasina. She was authoritarian, but at least there was order and there was no chaos as there is now. So the whole idea is that the Bangladeshis feel that India is trying to bring back Sheikh Hasina. I had recommended that Sheikh Hasina should be asked to leave. She can go to Dubai, or she can go to Singapore, or she can go somewhere in South America. She obviously has lots and lots of money. Staying in India is a provocation. No doubt about it. I'm an Indian. I'm an American of Indian origin, and even I will tell you that India should not have hosted Sheikh Hasina. And now that Bangladesh has formally called for an extradition of Sheikh Hasina to Bangladesh, India is in a quandary, because India also wants that kind of relationship. So the perception is this, that Bangladeshis feel that India continues to interfere in the domestic politics, is trying to destabilize Bangladesh. The assassination of Osman Hadi is something that they suspect. And India tends to recognize and show concern over the rights of minority, which is justified. Look, if you want to reform, Bangladesh has nearly 10% of its population is Hindu. So Bangladesh is a country of over 160 million people. So it has about 16 million or 15 million Hindus. And there is no way that it should be treating its Hindus. They should feel secure. They should feel safe. They should feel at home. They are Bangladeshis too. But let me also say something about people. A lot of Indians who come and watch my channel, especially those who are supporters of the Hindu nationalist movement, they think it is a virtue to place country above religion. Okay, keep this in mind. This is the latest refrain coming from Indian Hindus and Hindu nationalists who accuse Muslims of placing religion above nation. But Hindus want nation to be above religion. Okay, if that is the case, if that is the value that Hindus in India have, where country is more important than religion, then why do we see so much protest in India when Hindus are killed in Bangladesh, but no protests in India when Indians are murdered and butchered and lynched in India? So whether it is in Manipur, where a woman is taken naked and raped, a Christian woman, I didn't see mass protests by Indians saying, oh my God, you have raped an Indian woman and you have abused her. There was this man just last week who was beaten to death in Bihar, Muslim. Indians are not rising and saying, country is more important than religion. It doesn't matter that he's a Muslim. We will protest because he's an Indian and he's being killed in the state of Bihar. I don't see that kind of protest. So suddenly, when Hindu minorities are being treated badly in Bangladesh, India seems to take notice of it, but India doesn't seem to take notice of it when Indians themselves are being abused in India. So that's just a point on the side I wanted to make, that they are also placing religion above the country when they worry about Hindu minorities and not others. But there's something bigger going on. There's something bigger going on, and that is the problem of geopolitics in the region. There have been efforts recently by Pakistan to create a new South Asian multilateral groupings. Right now, it is limited to Bangladesh, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and China. They have already had one meeting in Tianjin, in China, where they're trying to create an alternative to SARC. India has basically killed SARC because it cannot cope with Pakistan. So India has disallowed the from SARC from becoming a regional. South Asia is the only region in the world which does not have an active, vibrant regional organization. Sultan, stop it. I'm recording. Reshma, I'm recording, so live. I'm live, and he's barking too much. So South Asia is the only region where you don't have any, shall we say, significant regional organization. You have ASEAN in East Asia. Even the African Union is highly active and important in Africa. Forget about the European Union, NATO, and all of these organs. So the reason why SARC has never become significant and important is because of the tensions between India and Pakistan, and both are equally responsible for SARC becoming irrelevant. Most of the countries in South Asia feel that India bullies them. And yes, there are attempts by India to create something like a BIMSTEC, but it looks eastward. Even BIMSTEC is not very active. And BIMSTEC, the B in BIMSTEC is Bangladesh, and India does not have good relations with Bangladesh anymore. Until now, so the Pakistanis now are trying to create a new institution or some kind of a new multilateral initiative. So far, we haven't seen Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Nepal, Maldives, or Afghanistan respond. Afghanistan has sort of become a satellite state of India. Hindu nationalism and Muslim radicalism, they seem to become good partners. The only friend that India now has in South Asia is radical Islam, the terrorist organization called Taliban. That is the only friend that India has in South Asia. But I don't know whether that will emerge, whether it will go out. But the partnership between these three countries is quite solidified, which is Bangladesh, Pakistan, and China. And this is definitely not something that India would like to see. It brings China's role much more prominent in South Asia. China is now exports about 80% of weapons that Bangladesh as well as Pakistan buy. China is the biggest investor in Bangladesh, in Maldives, in Sri Lanka, in Nepal, and Pakistan. So, sorry, China is the biggest investor in all of these countries. And so China is beginning to dominate India's backyard. Look, if you look at the latest national security strategy that Donald Trump has released, and he's re-emphasizing the Monroe Doctrine, where America wants to ensure and dominate its own region, the Western Hemisphere, and push China and Russia out of it. The first step to becoming a major power is to dominate your own region. If you are not the most powerful hegemon in your region, forget about becoming a global power. You're not even a major power in your neighborhood. And so what China is doing is preventing India from becoming a dominant player in South Asia, and India's bad relations with Pakistan, and now India's increasingly bad policies towards Bangladesh has ensured that China is a bigger player in South Asia than India. And so we see that there is a geopolitical transition taking place, which is not in the favor of India. And I don't think in the long run it is also good for Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is completely surrounded by India. It's an India-locked country. And I think it has a very tiny border with Myanmar. And other than that, most of its border is, 95% of its border is with India. A couple of years ago, when there was lots of criticism of the Modi government's foreign policy, saying that, look, what is happening going forward is that India is losing its influence in the region. India does not have any friends. This was especially when Maldives had its elections, and the slogan in Maldives was India out. So the current prime minister or president of Maldives, his campaign promise was to kick India out. And so when that was happening, India would respond by saying, look, we have such great relations with Bangladesh, and we are repairing our relations with Sri Lanka. India had extended a credit line of some $4-5 billion to Bangladesh. India was investing in Bangladesh, and there were good cultural relations. A lot of Bangladeshis were coming to India to study and go to medical schools, and vice versa, etc. So Bangladesh was an example of India's neighborhood policies a success. But now Bangladesh has become the worst example of India's foreign policy in South Asia. For Bangladesh, that is also true. Under Sheikh Hasina, one of the more remarkable aspect of Sheikh Hasina's foreign policy was that she managed to have good relations with both India and China. So she got investments from China, she got investments from India. Yeah, she became more and more authoritarian at home, but her foreign policy was genuinely advancing Bangladesh's national interests. She was seen as very close to Modi. For example, uh, she had come visited India twice just before she was ousted. She was invited to the G20 summit. She came for the inauguration of Modi for his third term as prime minister. So she was considered as a very close friend of Modi. But going forward, we see that that relationship has completely undermined. Bangladesh has benefited a lot from its close relationship with India. It continues to depend on India, but it is now shifting its dependency from India to China, which is definitely not good for India. But Bangladesh needs to ask its question: who is a reliable partner, India or China? Another thing that is interesting was under Sheikh Hasina, she for a while she even managed the United States well. So she was really playing with all these three superpowers reasonably well. She managed India, China, and the US. And then under the Biden administration, for whatever reason, the Biden administration decided to make Bangladesh an example of its democracy promotion uh, policies. It didn't promote democracy where there is no democracy, but in Bangladesh, it did try to push it, and there were sanctions imposed on Sheikh Hasina's government, etc., by the Biden administration because they felt that democracy was being undermined in Bangladesh. So, yes, her relations ultimately with the US went sour, but she continued to manage India and China reasonably well until she was ousted. Uh, Now, there are many reasons why her government was ousted. Besides being authoritarian, there are other reasons, such as nepotism and basically Gen Z's dissatisfaction with their reality everywhere in the world, whether it is in Nepal or India or Pakistan or Bangladesh or even in the United States. Gen Z, the young people who are not finding a purpose in life, don't have jobs, even though they have done their part, which is go to school, study, even get highly educated. They are unable to find meaning in life. They're unable to find jobs. So those things are going on significantly. So there was this revolution in Bangladesh where people want it to be less nepotistic, more meritocracy, more democracy. But there is also this fear that the ouster of Sheikh Hasina has emboldened the Jamaat Islami in Bangladesh, and so there is going to be the rise of radical Islam in Bangladesh. I don't know why India is worried about radical Islam in Bangladesh. They seem to be very friendly with radical Islam. They have no problem with radical Islam in Afghanistan. So if they can have good relations with the Taliban, I'm sure they can have a good relations with the Bangladeshi Taliban too. So the whole idea is what is going to happen. Both these countries, in spite of all the chatter about India being the fastest growing economy and being also uh, a major power, etc., India and Bangladesh are in the same mess when it comes to poverty and underdevelopment. They are both ranked 100 on Human Development Index. I think their rankings are about 100 and 134 or 135. I don't remember off the cuff, but let me tell you, there are at least 120 countries in the world which are more developed than India and Bangladesh. So India and Bangladesh are nearly identical when it comes to the HDI index. You can Google it, HDI index. And when it comes to per capita GDP, they are also just as poor. Both of them are, I think, around 119 and 120. So these are really very countries with large poor populations, and they cannot afford to not cooperate in trade and other ways to make sure that their populations continue to develop. Any tension between Bangladesh and India will definitely undermine Bangladesh's economic development. Bangladesh was steadily growing at 5.5, 6%, and now it has dropped to 3, 3.5, and even the forecast for 2026 is also not good. Plus, there are all these question marks whether Bangladesh will have free elections, whether it will be able to ratify and change the constitution, etc. So Bangladesh is going through this whole process of rebuilding itself, and so they need to focus on domestic development rather than increasing geopolitical tensions along the border, especially with a neighbor which is much more powerful and has much more resources than you do. So I think it'll in the interest of Bangladesh to try and normalize its relations with India. India will continue to pressure Bangladesh because they fear that if Bangladesh, Pakistan, and China form a trilateral nexus, it's a big threat to India. And these threats coming from Bangladeshi politicians that they will break India, etc., especially the suggestions that a military base, which is kind of defunct at the moment in Bangladesh, will be given to China, so China can have some military assets very close to the Siliguri corridor. That is a threat for India's national security, which India will definitely take seriously. And let me give it advice to to the Bangladeshi leadership: don't make stupid threats, especially threats which you can never enforce. So, for example, imagine if you have a gun and I don't, and you constantly threaten me with a gun and saying, "Oh, I have a gun, I will shoot you. I have a gun, I will shoot you." Well, if I'm richer than you, then I'm going to do two or three things. I'm going to go and buy myself a bulletproof jacket. I'm going to buy myself a bigger gun than you have. I might even hire a gunman to shoot you. And especially if you have no intention of shooting me, you just want to threaten me, that would be a very stupid thing to do. So these constant threats that Bangladeshis these days seem to make, that we will exploit India's weakness at the Siliguri corridor, is absolutely idiotic. What it has done is India has already moved some S-400 anti-aircraft defense systems to that region from the western border in Pakistan and kept them there, I think, during Operation Sindoor. You will see that India will shore up there. So while Bangladesh may not be able to threaten, you will have a much more robust India's military presence on your border. That is probably not what you really want. Yes, people are trying to say these things for domestic consumption to raise their own image at home. But remember, don't say stupid things at home, which can undermine the long-term interests of your country. So that's what I wanted to share with you about Bangladesh. What happened to Dipur Das was definitely despicable and deplorable. Bangladesh should try and not become like India, where minorities are routinely lynched, and people who lynch them get away with it. They are even called as people with unche sanskar, etc. So if you want to become a democracy like you do, I assume, then the first way to think for a good democracy to do is to protect your minorities. So that is one thing that you need to do. And if you disallow that, that will be chaos. No matter how much you change your constitution, no matter how much you talk about it, and that's not going to work. So keep that in mind, and I hope that Bangladesh does have fair and free elections soon. It is important. 5 years ago, Bangladesh was considered as an economic and democratic miracle. Bangladesh has also achieved something. For example, its birth control rates have been better than India and are definitely better than Pakistan. Uh, Bangladesh has grown faster economically and population-wise slower than Pakistan. So if you look at Bangladesh and Pakistan in 1971 and you look at it now, the per capita income of Bangladesh is $1,000 more than Pakistan. Pakistan is at 1,500 and Bangladesh is over 2,500, around 2,800 it was last year. So Bangladesh is economically much, much better than Pakistan. And just for the interest of Indians who think that Bangladeshis are migrating to Bihar in large numbers. Bangladesh is 4 times richer than the state of, 3 times richer than the state of Bihar. Bihar's per capita income is $800. Bangladesh is over $2,600. So it is 3.5 times richer than Bihar. There is no reason why Bangladeshis would like to go to Bihar for a better life, especially the Muslim Bangladeshis. I can understand that after the creation of the CAA, Hindu Bangladeshis cross the border into India in the hope that they can become Indian citizens and have a better life. That's a different issue altogether. So anyway, so this is something has become a flashpoint in South Asian politics. So for India now, this is bad news because India used to worry about 2.5 threats to its national security. They call it 2.5 fronts. One was the Western Front of Pakistan, the Chinese front, and the domestic front of terrorism coming out of Kashmir. These were the 2.5 fronts that India was worrying about. Unfortunately, if it does not repair its relations with Bangladesh, very quickly, India will now have to face 3.5 fronts, not 2.5. And that is definitely a failure of its foreign policy. Foreign policy, diplomatic relations are a two-way thing. So when relations between two countries go bad, they cannot entirely be blamed on just one country. Both are responsible, etc. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. So I hope you found this interesting. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this with your socio-political network. And Sultan, who wanted to join the panel discussion, he had some very strong views on this topic. He says hello to all of you. Take care. Bye.